Jake Knapp is the inventor of the design sprint and the New York Times bestselling author of the book Sprint. He's also the co-founder of Character, a venture fund for early stage startups. How and why did you start using Miro?
I came from this position of thinking, I don't want to be doing stuff online, to thinking now when I do a sprint in person with a company, it's like, we're going to use Miro, even though we're all in the same room, because that's a better way for us to get this work done. As an investor, we're basically investing in their ability to solve problems. We're saying, we think this group of people is going to be able to solve a problem in a really great way and create value by doing it. And actually, you need to give people the tools that can help them make decisions, help them collaborate, help them visualize and see things in a different way. And Miro does all those things. So to me, at least as an investor, I'm thinking, give the team the tools that are going to help them think, that are going to make the most, brighten their skills as smart folks. And Miro is at the top of that list.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, you're in the darkness tonight, but otherwise, how are you doing?
Hello, darkness, my old friend, is where I am right now, and as well as how I'm feeling in terms of JMU football's prospects moving forward.
Oh my God.
No, I'm kidding. I tweeted that I'd be positive today. I'll try and be positive. Other than that, I'm doing great. We have ourselves a nice limited edition, limited release Blood Orange Ghosts. We're drinking tonight on the podcast. Really solid stuff. Highly recommend if you can find this, if you're in Harrisonburg, Richmond, Charlottesville, anywhere that a Three Notch'd is pouring some ice cold ones. Go ahead and check it out. It is fantastic. But I'll let Bennett talk the rest of our Three Notch'd plug.
Yeah, well, they got Minuteman Mondays, even though you didn't give me my scroll today. They got Minuteman Mondays, and every Monday, those $3 Minuteman pints. We're not taking advantage of that, which is sad, but every Wednesday, they got game nights, which I don't think we'll be there for either, but $5 flagship pints on those. We'll be there for the normal beers, right? We don't get any fun promotions when we go, I guess, on our Saturday trip.
Well, I should probably email them that we're coming if we want to do anything there. Yeah. I guess we got to figure that out, too. I doubt a live podcast would carry much, but maybe like a recording of the podcast in the tap room. I don't know.
Who knows? But it's I'm excited to go there, excited to have some of their beers, and it's a good find by you with the Blood Orange.
Yeah, fantastic. I love me some Ghosts. I have a few other really good Richmond beers. Richmond has a really solid brewery scene, and if you didn't know already, Three Notch'd is now part of that fantastic brewery scene in Richmond. Just opened up at the beginning of this season. An awesome tap room that they have over here in Richmond. I think it's off of Broad Street. It's over I won't try to explain it. I'm bad with Richmond streets, but it's kind of in the hub of stuff over near I'll stop trying. Scott's Edition. Basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all sports betting needs this season. Last Saturday, Bennett, I went 0-6 on my college football bets.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you flip it, if you inverse it, if you faded me, you had a hell of a weekend. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. Wish they could have told me that Florida State was going to lose to Stetson. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest, and it's always the easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, college basketball, college football, even golf. Head on over to betonline.ag. That's betonline.ag. to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. You make a first deposit, let's say it's $100, they'll give you $50 for free right into your account. All you have to do is use promo code BELIEVE. That's promo code BLEAV, BELIEVE, to receive your rewards. Bet online where the game starts. And it is a fantastic weekend, a fantastic way to start this podcast as we can break down Louisville.
Yes, we can. Tough loss, 3 losses in a row, 34-10. It was tied 10-10 at halftime. Dukes were hanging in there, but they end up losing this game 34-10. They're outscored 24-0 in the second half. Kind of got out of hand toward the end of the third, early fourth. And that final quarter was kind of what it was. I think I might have tuned out there for the last few minutes and then watched it back. But what was kind of your initial takeaway from this game, which featured 52 passing yards for the Dukes and 4 total completions?
That Todd still hurt, and that the lack of transparency from Curt Cignetti, I think, hurt him more than he anticipated. I think if he was fully transparent leading into that game, letting everyone know that we're really banged up on the offensive line, Todd, he's going to be our best option on Saturday, but he's not going to be 100%. I think that really would have helped Cignetti in that scenario. Also, my initial reaction right when we got out of that game was, wow, that coaching was terrible. There was no adjustments. That game plan was abysmal. We can talk more about the game plan. It was abysmal, but it wasn't abysmal for, I think, the reasons we necessarily thought it was going into it. I think it was terrible second downs, which is weird to hear. Like, first downs were good. Third downs weren't terrible. But, I mean, overall, I think they're 3 of their last 30 on third down attempts, which just, isn't a good. They were 3 for 13 against Louisville, 0 for 17 against Marshall. So just not a good stretch here as of late. They now convert 34% of all their third downs on the season, which is one of the worst in the nation. But I was kind of just – I was just kind of bummed. And, I know coming into it, if you told me that this was going to be the scenario in the Louisville game – and what their record was going to be, I take it. But at the same time, knowing what the ceiling of the team was, it just seems like we've come a long way from the Arkansas State game.
Yeah, it's tough to go 5-0 and then lose 3 in a row. And in those 3, they're tied or leading at halftime in all of them. I think that's kind of a tough pill for fans to swallow, understandably. So I want to go back to the Centeio stuff. So Curt Cignetti says after the game, when somebody asked, hey, I think it might have been Noah, but somebody asked about the play calling and why there were so few passes. They only threw 15 passes compared to, I got to pull up the things, 36 runs. So and some of the passes were late in the game, early on, and they had multiple 3rd and long runs that didn't make a lot of sense. So there was a question about Centeio's health and hey, is he still hurt, basically? And Cignetti says that he's fine. So you don't believe that he's fine.
You look at that game plan. You look at how Todd played. You see a 10-yard underthrow on a ball that he's completing 7 times out of 10 early in the season. You're telling me he's fine. This is a question to you. I'm not trying to be sassy or anything.
I don't think he's fine.
Yeah, I know. It's just there's no way and this is going to hurt Cignetti this season, I think. And maybe that's too much of a knee-jerk reaction. But by treating your injuries like this, it's hurting you. Because now you tell me he's fine. Not only is Todd Centeio suiting up, which maybe this is my old an old meathead football type of take I have on this, but if you're playing in the game, I expect you to compete. I expect you to be able to complete the passes that need to be completed. We'll talk about Zach Horton dropping 2 inexcusable balls early on that may have hurt some things. But Centeio's not hitting open receivers. Centeio isn't necessarily pushing it down the field. The quick passing worked later in the game, but it was just weird. Why are you taking it out of your you're playing an ACC school that Forest? I think I just went out for a second. You just beat up on Wake Forest. You're telling me your game plan is we're gonna outman them? No.
Yeah, I thought that was a confusing strategy for him to run. I think I'm coming back through my sound.
That's my fault.
No, I'll give you a second. Did your mic unplug?
Yeah, we're figuring it out now as we talk.
Should I keep going or will it echo?
You're good now.
Okay. I think for me with the Centeio stuff, it was a confusing plan that kind of actually worked in the first half, which was impressive. But then
did it work or did it just not take its full effect? I know that's a weird worded question. It's going to work for the first 30 minutes. You got to gauge a game plan if it's working in the 58th minute, which it just wasn't.
It's you couldn't really expect it to work for the entirety of the game. So it was confusing. You can't, Louisville's defense is way too good to be we're only going to run the ball, which is kind of what it seemed like the plan was. And there's the injury question, I think, is a good point. I guess we can stay there for a minute in terms of his transparency. Because it's mostly like perception, right? With the fans, he doesn't have to say anything or whatever. But there's no competitive, like Louisville prepared for Centeio, so there's no
a healthy
yeah,
Todd Centeio.
there's no competitive advantage to saying like, oh, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be because they're going to prepare for the better quarterback. So if you go out and say like it's Centeio, but he's a little banged up, but he's our best option, I think fans go in with like, if they can hang close, that'd be fun, which I think you realize after the fact. It's just a weird one mid-game to be like, what are you doing? And then afterwards, if you also say that he's fine, then it makes fans have a lot more questions about like, wait, what was that game plan then? Because if that guy is fine, you can't just run it every single play with a stacked box and expect to actually win the game. And it's a stacked box with receivers on the side. So it's not like you have a stacked box and you got like 2 tight ends and a fullback in there. You know what I mean? Like you don't have enough bodies to block.
And also, like, on your passing attempts early on in the game, I referenced the Zach Horton drops. He's wide open. Like, your routes were working. And even that deep heave down the field that Centeio was a little short on, like, I don't hate that pass throw. I think he was double covered, if I'm not mistaken. But like,
there was a spot, like, if he threw it normally into the outside, he could have fitted in or at least, like, given him a shot.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, your pass plays were working, and then you just were so adamant on not trusting him or his oblique or his shoulder, whatever it was. And even on Twitter, I know I got a little bit in trouble from some JMU fans for being too negative to start that game, and that's why I'm trying to be a little bit more positive today. Yeah, we were a little negative to start that game, but I think it was just head scratching. We're told he's healthy, and then your game plan against an ACC team whose secondary is, I mean, they're really strong defensively, but like they could kind of give up some plays in the passing attack, or at least if you were 50-50 split, they were just like 70-30 split.
I think, like, for me, the last few games at least are like somewhat frustrating, mostly because they could have won 2 of the 3. Like the Sunbelt ones are more frustrating because
they could have won the Georgia Southern. I know they, like, if we're really like picking hairs, they probably they should have won 2 of the 3. But at the same time, like that Georgia Southern game was right there and it was winnable.
Yeah, it's like way too many turnovers. The defense got torched. You give up a stupid blocked punt. Like there's so many things where it's like, gosh, it's like I know that like 5-3 at the beginning of the season, you're like, all right, I'll sign up for it. But at the same time, it's like, man, they could be 7-1. Like they could be really good. The Louisville game, there were a few things. Like, I mean, I'm not that mad that they lost, really, to be honest with you. Like Louisville's really good and JMU's pretty banged up. So it's not like a huge shock that they would lose to a good ACC team. But it's frustrating because they had some plays and decisions that didn't make a lot of sense. Like the relying on the runs, like on 3rd and long, was weird. No one's really asked about Kalon Black. I guess he's still on a carry count or a touches count because, like, oh, the one drive when they use him, they score a touchdown, and the rest of the game, it's like he's on the bench.
You bring up 3rd downs. They didn't run it as much as you thought they would have on 3rd downs. So I'm going to give you the 3rd down breakdown for this entire game. 3rd and 9, first drive. It's converted because of the targeting call on Todd.
Yeah.
Which was like, it was targeting 100%, but it was also like such a late flag that I think all JMU fans were like, what's happening? Then from there, 3rd and 3, incomplete. 3rd and 6 was a run, but they were planning to go for it on 4th, so I don't hate that. The issue is then on 4th and 1, you run and you get stuffed, which is a bad look. 3rd and 4, complete for 7. 3rd and 6, complete for 20 yards. Then it's halftime. Next, and I think this is why us as JMU fans were like, they're running it on 3rd and longs this entire game. Why the F are you doing this? It's because the first 2 drives, which is when the game is still in reach, it's 3rd and 10. This is your first drive of the first half. You're already, I think they scored on their opening drive, so you're down at this point. 3rd and 10, you run it for 7 yards. Then the very next time you get the ball, 3rd and 5, you run it for 1 yard. And then from there, 3rd and 15, incomplete. 3rd and 11, incomplete. 3rd and 8, incomplete. 3rd and 13, complete for 18. 3rd and 5, incomplete. So like they did throw it a lot on 3rd down.
They did, but they had another one on the first drive. It was like a 3rd and 9 from the
3rd
Louisville.
3rd and 6 that they ran it and they went for it on 4th down.
No, before that, in the first quarter, the first drive, there's another one in there. They had the targeting, and then there's one more on that drive.
Oh, there was.
Where it was a 3rd and 9 from the Louisville 20, and they ran it with Palmer for like 2 yards and kicked a field goal. And it was like, why? Just like, why give up on the drive when you're at the 20? That's what was confusing and sort of played into it. And then the other ones you had mentioned too that were like, so they threw it a lot on third down, but like to have 2 or what is it, 3 third down.
It was 2 to start the second, and that was, I think that's what hurt me the most. And it's at a point in the game where like, all right, we've gone off script. Like the script kind of worked in the first half, and the script, is the plays that you come in that you want to run. Like these are your first 15, 20 plays. And for the most part, you went to the script. Then the halftime script, you're coming out of half, and that was your script, 3rd and 10, and you're running it when the game's still in the balance. And then the next drive, okay, 3rd and 10, you run it for 7. It was 3rd and long. The way you've been passing it hasn't really been working out. I get it. Okay, let's try and catch them off guard and see if we can get a quick 10. Then the next drive, it's 3rd and 5, and you run it again. That's the one where I'm just like, okay, you threw the white. That's the white flag. That's a surrender right there. You don't want to win this game.
It didn't make sense. And then the thing at the end, so the presser was kind of electric, to be honest with you. It was only like 6 minutes.
Didn't Signetti say shit at one point during the presser
twice?
Too?
Well, he said that at least. He said that at least once, maybe twice, and then he said we also got like our ass kicked or something was in there too. So there was some cursing going on, which was fun. And then he had another one. His opening statement was that here, I'll read it. He goes, it's a pretty simple synopsis, okay? With 2 minutes to go in the half, we're up 3 points. In the last 32 minutes, we were physically dominated, and that's it. Period. It was like, kind of, but at the same time, if you think you're physically dominated, wouldn't you try like some schematic stuff other than like, what if we ran it up the gut on 3rd and 9? Like, that's what's frustrating. It's like, they just kicked our butts. Like, show me a little fight, though, like schematically.
We were texting about this where you're like, I get what he's saying. And then I think I turned your opinion on it pretty quickly. Or maybe I misread your text. But I was just like, yeah, if you're being out-dominated, though, don't try to out-dominate the team that's out-dominating you. Why don't you, like, get tricky with it? Why don't you do quick passes? Why don't you do screen? Like, they're being aggressive. They're going to try and clog every run lane. Run a screen pass. That's what they teach you in Madden 101.
The screen pass to Kalen Black went for 20 yards. The one they set up to Zach Horton that hit him in the chest and he dropped was going to go for like at least 40. A first down. So I don't know. It was just like, it felt like they could have been a little more, I guess, less predictable. And the thing that like some of my friends that I have in like group chats complain about is like when JMU is matched up with a team that they deem to be like even or close to even, the plan doesn't really change. The plan almost every time they play a game, and it kind of seems like this, under Signetti is like, we're going to win the line of scrimmage. And if we do that, we can win. And like, they have changed things up in terms of like Cole Johnson threw for a gazillion yards and a lot of touchdowns. Centeio like opened the season with a 6 touchdown game. So it's not like they only pound the ball, but there are times where it feels like they're maybe too reliant on like, if we don't have that physical edge up front, there's not like a backup plan. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like there could be things coaching wise that maybe they do that are a little more creative that give them some options. It feels like a lot of times there's reliance on better overall athleticism where it's like, hey, our guys are more athletic, which they've been in probably 4 of the 5 wins this year with App State being closer. And when they play a team that has like similar athletes, I'd like to see them be more creative or at least throw the ball on 3rd and 10 every time.
Yeah. Do you want to hear a couple insane stats from the game?
Hit me.
So in this game, in the first half, 4 of the first 5 plays of drives were runs.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just really dedicated to running the ball. And in the second half, when you're down, at some points of that second half, multiple scores.
Yeah.
4 of the 6 first plays of drives were runs. So they really didn't deviate from the script too much, which is kind of jarring to see. But at the end of the day, that first play of the drive wasn't the issue. They were averaging 4.2 yards per gain on first down. So they were seeing on average 2nd and 5.8, which isn't amazing, but it's also not terrible. Then on 3rd down, they were seeing 3rd and 8.1, which means they were on average losing yards on 2nd down to then see 3rd and 8. And then the kicker of it all, they were 1 of 9 for the entire game on passes more than 5 yards.
Yeah, it's it's frustrating, right? Because they kept putting themselves in 3rd and long, And they weren't trying, like when their touchdown drive, they converted a couple third downs with passes. One of them was 3rd and 4. One of them was 3rd and 6. So it's like when you're in a little bit of a more manageable spot, you can hang in there. And the catch to that is when you have a 2nd and 6, I think in the coach's mind, it's like, oh, let's run it again. Let's get 3 yards and it's 3rd and 3. But when the defense goes, oh, they're going to run it again, then they send everyone in the box. And instead of getting those 3 yards or losing yards where you need to do some sort of pass to change it up if you're physically capable. So that was kind of frustrating. Like their first 4 second down calls of the second half were runs. Like they were so predictable.
Another fun fact, for the second week in a row, the rushing success rate dwarfed that of what the overall offensive success rate was.
Yeah.
Which I think in this game just shows how bad the passing attack was, which you cannot tell me that Todd Centeio was hurt and that was the offensive passing game plan you had.
Yeah. It's really just confusing to how it worked. And somebody asked this during the game. I forget who it was, but I was interested in your take. Sort of what does it say that Centeio for 4 for 15, 52 yards, they believe that that's the better option? What does that tell you about the quarterback room?
That it's bad. That outside of Todd Centeio, it's bad. That an FBS transfer is the most likely route for this team to be successful in 2023.
Do you think Billy Atkins starts another game in his JMU career?
No, I think Billy Atkins transfers. What Cignetti has said about him, what Cignetti's press conferences have been around Billy Atkins, if I'm him, I'm in the transfer portal tomorrow.
It's hard to see him starting another game, like ever. Like, I mean, I would be cool if he did because I don't know. Like that would probably mean that he's obviously developed a lot. But it's super weird when he goes on and he's like he's not a good practice player, and if he ever learns how to practice well, he could be a good prospect. It's like it's not like this kid's like a sophomore in high school. Like he's been in your program for 2 years, and you're telling me he's not. I don't know. It's some weird stuff. And then for them to be like, we'll go with the guy whose entire right side, oblique and shoulder, is injured. That's our option. It's just like the right-handed quarterback's right side doesn't work. And that's better than that.
And not only were they like afraid to pass it because his entire right side wasn't working, they were like hesitant to even have him take a hit.
Yeah.
He wasn't sacked in the game, but that wasn't because the offensive line was playing like this amazing pass protection. It's because I think the longest he held it for was maybe 2 seconds.
Yeah, and then like it's got to be hard for him too, right? If you're Centeio, where it's like you want to uncork a pass and it's like, okay, my shoulder hurts, so maybe I'll do a little more twisting. It's like, oh wait, my oblique is pulled. So it's like, what are you just supposed to like really drive with your legs? Like I don't know how he's supposed to.
It's all elbow, baby.
Yeah, another injury coming. I don't know like what he's supposed to do in that situation. It's like it all stinks that he's not healthy and that they're down some linemen and things like that. And Reggie Brown went down with an injury at receiver, but I don't know. I feel like there were some game plan things. I also think Louisville's pretty good. I was impressed though with like the defense, especially the defensive front, for keeping them in the game as long as it did.
This defense is really good.
Yeah.
Like that game, this Louisville game, just to me like really cemented that the secondary may have had a bad game against Georgia Southern, but overall, like this defense from back to front, from front to back, from left to right, right to left, I think they're one of the best defenses we've seen in quite some time. The stats aren't going to bear it out because they are playing better competition, but for all things considered, this defense has been amazing. Kept them in the Marshall game and kept them in this Louisville game. And
Love James Carpenter on the defensive line. He's been phenomenal.
You got to eat your words from the preseason, huh?
Well, I think my concern was more so the depth and not specifically him in terms of him being.
He did catch
I
a
had
stray,
concerns.
He did catch a stray then.
He did catch a stray. That's fair. But I didn't realize he was going to be this good. But I think the concern too is like in that game, he's playing like all of the snaps. Did you see the one when he subbed out? The one sequence when he subbed out?
Oh God, no.
Second half, I think, and he made like 3 or maybe second quarter. He made like a few big plays in a row. It was grinding, and then like kept tapping his helmet to come out. And we came on. He was like screaming at the sideline for not subbing him out earlier. And Cignetti came over. He's like, "You got to go 4 plays in a row or something." Like, he was like, "This is how we've always done it." Like, I don't know what you want me to do, but it was funny because it's a spot where like if they had another guy or two that they feel good about, he, wouldn't have to like play out of his mind just to have him hang in the game. So I think that's an area where like they return some really good defenders in multiple spots, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go into the portal and get like legitimate, talented defensive linemen and things just to make it a really deep room. Because I think Cignetti's kind of fair in saying that they need more depth because I think some of the guys they have there maybe aren't ready to play a ton of minutes against like top tier group of 5 or an ACC team quite yet.
That's fair. That's fair.
But it's also frustrating when Cignetti goes like, oh, we got bullied, where it's like a little of both. Where like, I hear you on the depth, but like, give me something creative offensively where it's like, hey, we went down swinging.
It's also a little weird to me because you have the COVID, like you aren't as behind in scholarships as you would have been if you did this move pre-COVID.
Yes.
And it's like he keeps saying his depth is an issue. And it's like, I get it is, but instead of being like 40 scholarships behind, you're only like 15, 10. Like you are still behind. You're allowed to, like, I get that excuse. But at the same time, you've used that excuse, I think, one too many times at this point.
I think when he says it, he doesn't mean numbers. He means talent. Like I think I think he has players who.
Yeah.
I think he has guys who could play against Delaware. Like he recruited them essentially to play against Delaware. And now it's like you're playing like Marshall, and it's like, wait a second. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has kind of like a massive roster overhaul in the offseason. Not like overly massive, but where he goes in and like sits down with players and is like, realistically, you might not play. Like, you know what I mean? And those guys might look elsewhere because coaches kind of do that in the era of the portal. So I could see them adding depth pretty quickly over time. But I don't know. It was certainly frustrating on some accounts, but maybe not the worst thing in the world that they're 5-3. They're still alive in the East, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that game meant nothing. That game was meaningless. How cool would it have been to go on the road and beat an ACC team? Would have been awesome, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. And then they win this Saturday against Marshall. They win next Saturday against Georgia State.
Play Marshall again.
Did I say Marshall?
Yeah.
ODU this weekend. Play Georgia State.
I think we beat him if we played him again with Centeo.
I don't know about this banged up Centeo because they'd be getting home and they'd be teeing off on his right side.
They are pretty darn good defensively.
But I think, this team, I don't think this. I know this. They're still in the driver's seat to win the Sun Belt East. Like, they control their own destiny. They win out. They win the Sun Belt East.
Which would be pretty darn cool. So I do want to ask you. I want to read a stat, and I want to hear your thought to this.
Oh, God. This is going to get me in trouble.
I don't think it will. They're 5-3. So one of the wins is over Norfolk State, which I've thrown out for the purpose of this stat because they're like a 1-8 FCS team. So
put some respect on the MEAC.
Okay. Well, Middle Tennessee, App State, Texas State, Arkansas State. So those are the 4 FBS wins they've got.
Okay.
The 3 losses, Georgia Southern, Marshall, Louisville. The Sagarin ratings, they're not like the end-all be-all, but they're kind of fun to look at because they include FCS teams, which a lot of things don't. So the average Sagarin ranking of a team JMU is defeated this year.
You're going to tell me they beat up on bad teams and lose to good teams.
Yes, excluding Norfolk State is 116.5.
What's with Norfolk State?
I don't even include them. With them would be significantly higher. And then the average for the losses is 65.3, which is skewed a little bit with Louisville. Otherwise, it'd be 87. But it's kind of fair. I feel like we probably overhyped them significantly when they were 5-0.
It kind of gives me vibes of, was it the 2019 season? Was that the year?
No, it's 2018, right?
Yeah, it was 2018.
Yeah.
It was my senior year. And they started like 4-0, and it was the first time Richmond was actually bad that they played them, so they blew them out like 62-3. And then all of a sudden, we're like, they're 4-0. They have Elon for homecoming. Is this the best team we've ever seen out of JMU? Fast forward, you're losing to Colgate, and Mike Houston's 1 foot out the door as the season's ending. Kind of gives me those vibes. I mean, and at the same time, like you look back at like kind of how bad App State has become this season.
They're only 5-4,
and you're like, oh, it took a 28-point comeback to take down like a middle tier. I mean, we say that as a team in the middle of a transition, but like to take down a middle tier Sun Belt team, Arkansas State's in the middle of a rebuild with Butch Jones as their head coach. Like, yeah, you probably should win that game. Middle Tennessee, they didn't game plan, apparently.
It also turns out they stink.
Yeah, and the Miami game made us think. We're like, oh, that's
Right.
a good win. Oh my God. Not only did we beat App, who beat Texas A&M,
Right.
who also turns out to suck, but Middle Tennessee beat Miami, who also turns out to just suck monkey balls. And it's just like, whoa. And now we're sitting back and we're like, oh, maybe those wins weren't as good as we thought they were, because their wins against people who we thought were better weren't actually that good. So now the wins that we thought were against them that were good weren't actually that good. And our only true good win is a road win against Arkansas State. Huh.
Yeah, it's like they haven't necessarily had any overly the App State one's still pretty good on the road, but 5-3 is kind of not. It feels like it shouldn't be that unexpected when you look at their average win. It's 116.5 and the FBS wins is Sagarin, and Northern Iowa's 117. So it's yeah, we would expect them to beat Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
Whereas
That's a good
the 65.3 is the South Dakota State, North Dakota State range. So playing an average of I don't know, the best team in the FCS. We would be an FCS national title contender this year, but not a guarantee to win it is sort of my take. So we're as good as we've been in some previous years. We just got to
build
build
a really good way
bit.
not to rationalize, but put it into perspective. I was really
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, and I know we say this every podcast, if you had told me this was where we would be 8 weeks into 10 weeks into the season, I guess, because 2 bye weeks, because that makes sense. 2 bye weeks, 10 weeks, that we're 5-3, I'd take it in contention for a Sun Belt title. And in all seriousness, maybe I'm overhyping the team again, but in a solid spot to win these remaining games.
I think they can.
Because they could have beat Marshall with Billy Atkins. They could have beat Georgia Southern with a healthy Thompson Teo.
And a gazillion turnovers in that game and mistakes. So if they can, the ODU game feels huge, massive.
Which we'll be there.
We will be there, which is very exciting.
Yes, and that's a perfect segue. What's so massive about ODU this week?
If you win it, you guarantee a winning record.
Huge.
Big deal, right? Pretty nice to have a winning record.
You're bowl eligible.
You're bowl eligible. You get your first win in football program history over ODU, even though it's only the 3rd meeting. So okay, but that would be cool.
You start the royal rivalry out with a dub.
Right. And then it sets up, you got 2 home games against Georgia State and Coastal. And if you win the 2 home games, you win the East. So it's there's a lot at stake in this game. I know some people have also talked about the recruiting implications, which is always good if you can beat in-state teams. I didn't realize JMU had won 16 consecutive games against in-state opponents.
Neither had I, but I guess when you look at it, William and Mary, Richmond.
There was one VMI mixed in, and there's 3 or 4 Norfolk States, but it's still it's still 16 in a row. And you get ODU at 17, and then you open next year, week 2, with UVA. So you could get it up to 18 with wins over ODU, UVA, and a bunch of FCS teams. It's not too bad.
This is a question kind of tongue-in-cheek, but could this be the 4th straight win against the 757 area code?
It could be. How exciting is that?
That's big.
We should bring up those old stats this week and fire that out and see if we can get some ODU fans pissed off.
You got some App State fans mad at the basketball tweet. We'll get into basketball in a little bit.
A message to the nation. They're what message is this?
What message? You beat Valley Forge. Thanks. I also like the one Valley Forge women's player sneak dissing her own team, where she was you beat a D3 school who's not even good.
I think that was a troll account or something. I don't know what that was. But yeah, that was a weird one. But anyway, huge game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that is big. This is a game that's large. This means a lot on the old schedule. I don't know what to expect with this game, though, because ODU's 3-6. And we'll break down some of the advanced stats in the 3-notch preview for this breakdown. But, they're 3-6, and their wins, I know you know this, but for the listener, it's Virginia Tech, Arkansas State, and Coastal in dominating fashion.
Yeah, they could be the best 3-6 team in college football. Those are like, you would like those wins. They're not bad at all. And they lost on a last second field goal to UVA. They're not a pushover. I'll say that about them. They're not a pushover. I think they try hard, but I think they're severely lacking in terms of likability.
Yeah, Hayden Wolf, not the best quarterback.
He's had a tough year, yeah.
He does have a really solid rating, but we all know passer rating's a made-up stat. He has a 56% completion rate, which just isn't good, but he's a 14-4 touchdown interception ratio. Blake Watson is their bell cow, a redshirt junior from Queens. He has over 700 yards rushing, averages 6 yards per touch, 5 touchdowns on the year. But other than that, they don't really have that many other guys. Like, it's the Hayden Wolf and Blake Watson show, and then receiving. You got Ollie Jennings.
He's a freak. He's good.
He is. He has 54 receptions for nearly 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. He'll give issues to JMU's secondary. But then other than that, the next closest receiver is Javon Harvey with 23 catches. Redshirt sophomore, hometown product from Norfolk, Virginia. Just 1 touchdown and just 371 yards. So, like, a massive drop-off. And they're the 71st. I mean, their offense isn't terrible. I mean, they're not an overall terrible team now that I look at it. They're 66th in EPA.
Yeah, I think they stink, but they have some guys who can make some plays. Jennings against ECU this year in a loss had 8 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's awesome. But other than that, I don't think they have a lot offensively. They just kind of like hang in games. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you look at the stats and you're like, oh, they don't seem like they should really be good. And then you look at the scores and you're like, they just kind of never seem to go away. Like, they just sort of weirdly lurk in these games. So I think they're well coached with Ricky Ronnie, which I always think should be like Rain or something with how it's spelled, but then people say it and I'm like, oh, weird. But he's a decent coach. So I don't know. They just seem to sort of lurk in games.
What worries me about this game is that they are going to become so one-dimensional. Rushing the ball, they're 103rd in the nation in terms of efficiency. Passing the ball, they're 75th. So, like, not a great jump up, but, like, they are markedly better in terms of passing the ball, and their rush attack is so bad. And JMU's rush defense is so good that, like, just because JMU's strength is going to play there, like, they're going to go one-dimensional into the one part of JMU's defense that can be susceptible to big plays. And then defensively, they're really good against the run, and they're all right against the pass. So hopefully Todd's oblique gets better and they can actually pass the ball. Because if not, and they're running into a stacked box against the 32nd most efficient rush defense in the nation, we might be in for a long day in ODU in Norfolk.
Today, we discuss Miro. Listen, when it comes to running client workshops, the dream, of course, is to get those creative juices flowing, right? But typically what ends up happening is thousands of hours get wasted because of poorly facilitated meetings. So I have Maya with me today. She's a consultant who runs Fortune 100 workshops, from leadership training to team building, and she has the insider tip on what makes things work. Maya?
Thank you, Jason. I've been doing this a long time. My number one tip is to bring everyone into that visual collaboration platform. So personally, I use Miro, and it's completely changed how I interact with the room. You have to give people a way to feel like they're in the room even when they're not. That's something you can do easily in Miro. Otherwise, they've seen the same slides and format 1,000 times.
Falling asleep, eyes glazing over, yawns, all that.
Exactly. When people follow me on the Miro board, everyone is literally going on a journey with me. We're adding thoughts, we're reacting, and we're voting for the best ideas. It's great.
Connective magic. I like it. That's MIRO.com.
I just can't. I have such a hard time seeing JMU losing this game. I could see it because it's like a low-scoring one that's a battle, and they hit some deep pass plays or whatever. I just they haven't done a lot that like really impresses me. Like I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball at all. Like ODU, I don't think has any.
Oh, yeah, they won't. JMU, for all, like, we've now played Louisville. There's enough of sample size. They're the number one rush defense in the nation, according to expected points added. Every time you rush the ball, negative 0.362 points added.
Yeah, so, like, that's pretty good, I'd say.
Yes.
You look at ODU, like, teams run the ball on them a lot, so they're like, in terms of how many rushing yards they give up per attempt, they do a nice job hanging in there. But I just feel like maybe you just pound it over and over and over and over and over, against them, and you could make some things happen, at least possibly. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to be okay.
So that leads us into, of course, this week's Three Notch'd preview. ODU, here we come. We say that because we're going down to Norfolk for this game. Shout out Brian getting us tickets for this one. We are hyped for it. But like we just mentioned, that entire breakdown, this game seems iffy. You're all the way on the Monarchs. I think I'm a little... You're all the way... I can't talk. You're all the way on the Dukes. I'm all the way on the Monarchs. And by all the way, I mean they worry me. Like, there's legitimate worry that their strengths play into JMU's weakness. Like, JMU will stop the run in this game. ODU will not run it. ODU has a fantastic wide receiver. Hayden Wolf isn't all that bad. But you said Ricky Rainey's a good coach.
Yeah, he can hang in there and do his job, and I think he's shown that he's a decent coach. But I don't know that, like, you got Ricky Ronnie out there who's sort of going out and scheming things up. Is that going to be enough to beat a JMU team that I think is really good defensively? And ODU at times this year has given up a bunch of sacks. So, like, Liberty got 4 against them. Georgia State got 6. I think Marshall got 3. Marshall just beat them 12-0. Like, even with that deep passing attack. So I think JMU has enough defensively to go out and win. And that's sort of the challenge for the Dukes, is like, defensively, just go dominate, control a game, score whatever you can, find a way to get out of there with a win, get a little bit healthier, ideally, that next week. And you've got 2 games at home to close it out. You could win the East. But I don't know if it'll be like a pretty win, but I think the defense can get it.
I don't think JMU's defense has scored a point this season for them. This would be a big... I don't think they've had a pick 6. Jalen Walker. Yeah. Quick rapid fire during this 3-notch preview. I want to hit you with, give me which team has the better insert blank. I'll give you the insert blanks. Which team has the better coach?
I'll say it's like a tie. I think Ronnie's going to be coaching a Power 5 team at some point.
Running back room.
ODU's decent there, but I still think JMU, if fully healthy, has the edge. Otherwise, it's reasonably competitive.
Quarterback.
I think JMU, healthy, has a big edge.
Offensive line.
I think JMU's O-line's better.
Wide receivers.
Receivers, I think because of Jennings, you could give ODU an edge because they have like a game-breaking.
Yeah, 100. Correct answer. Defensive line.
I like JMU's, I think, almost entire defensive unit more.
I agree. All right. I disagree with quarterback because I don't think Todd's healthy. And I'm going to hold this thought until they actually throw the ball further than 5 yards down the field. Love it. Anything else you want to add about ODU?
I will say their secondary is not terrible. So,
all right. You know what we forgot to do last week?
Did we not do Sunbelt Pick'em?
We didn't do Sunbelt Pick'em, so we're back this week with our Sunbelt Pick'em. Before we move into basketball, because we have to break down what happened with Valley Forge, we have to break down what's happening with the women's team. But first, it's time for the Emmy-nominated Sunbelt Pick'em.
It's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that. The weekly Sunbelt Pick'em, I don't know what our records are. We'll see what happens by the end of the year. Georgia Southern's Kyle Van Treese nearly at 3,000 passing yards, folks. Yeah. He needs 18 more yards, and he has 3,000 passing yards. This week, he's going to get that against Louisiana down at Cajun Field. Georgia Southern, Louisiana. Who do you got? The UL Raging Cajuns are 3-point favorites.
Surprised by that line a little bit, to be honest with you. But I'll take Georgia Southern just because I'm all in on them, and I think they will be going to a bowl. So I'll say that they win it here and get bowl eligibility.
I agree. I'm on Georgia Southern as well. UL Monroe, Georgia State. Georgia State, a massive 13.5-point favorite.
They've won 4 of their last 5. That game that we're going to also on the 19th is sneaky tough now. So I think Georgia State wins this one too. They win 5 of their last 6, and they could sneak into a bowl, folks.
What does Georgia State run? Their quarterback leads the team in rushing yards?
I think he's like actually very dangerous, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Love that for us. I'm going to go Georgia State as well. That's so scary. UMass, Arkansas State.
If JMU loses to ODU, though, they're like could have a losing record. So there's some interesting stuff coming here. UMass, Arkansas State is a great game.
remember at the beginning of the year when I was like, there's a real possibility they're going to open 4-0 and then just lose the rest of their games? What if I was just like a game off of when that would happen?
That'll be tough.
UMass Arkansas State.
Arkansas State, I think they get right here. They go to 3-7 and start to really impress recruits.
James Blackman, that Florida State transfer, their quarterback, not having a best season. Army Troy. I'm going Arkansas State too. Army Troy.
Army's only 3-5. I thought they'd be better this year, so they've kind of let me down. I like Troy, but this game is the total's got to be. It's 46. That feels way high. I'll say Troy wins, and
Troy might have to get 38 of those 46.
Troy's offense is terrible. I can't see this game getting that high. That seems like a fake line.
App Marshall, App a 1-point favorite against the best defense in the Sun Belt.
This is actually a fun one, right? Because App can't play defense and Marshall can't play offense, but they're electric on the other side. That's a fun one. I don't know. I'll say Marshall. I feel like App's weirdly dysfunctional and we don't know it yet.
I'm upset that you said that because I was hoping you were going to say App because I love Marshall in this game, but this is one of those spots where it's such a toss-up. I'm going to go App. I just have to go against you.
All right, fair enough.
Texas State, my boys, South Alabama, the Jaguars.
South Alabama, big. They're a really good team.
Yeah, they are. I've been trying to tell you, but you've been over there on Southern Miss. Southern Miss ain't done nothing but miss this whole season. They're taking on Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers.
Southern Miss lost by 28 to Georgia State at home last weekend. Devastating for me.
So JMU is going to lose to Georgia State next week.
And Coastal had that Thursday win over App. Is Coastal not a fraud? Were we wrong?
They're 8-1, 5-1 in Sun Belt play. That game to finish out the season looks like it's going to be a woo.
I really thought they were a fraud. I'll say Coastal wins. I'll say that maybe.
In fairness,
frauds.
Coastal's I'm going to say Coastal too because I don't think Southern Miss is good. But in fairness, they barely beat Army. They barely beat Gardner-Webb. They won by 12 against Buffalo. Then they blew out Georgia State. Won by 4 against Georgia Southern. A touchdown at UL Monroe. Got blown out by ODU. And then in the 2 weeks after that, 2-possession win at Marshall. 1-possession win against App State.
But they just keep winning.
No, I know. And I'm saying, after that loss, was that a get-right spot?
I don't know, man. They're going to lose to us by 3 scores, though. So,
all right. You're right. You're right. All right. And JMU taking on ODU this weekend. Who do you got?
I have JMU winning 20-10.
I have JMU 17-3.
What a thriller.
I think this is going to be an ugly, ugly game. I don't think our offense is going to be all that good. I think it's going to be a slugfest, and the better defense wins. And I think JMU has the better defense. And I think JMU is going to make ODU one-dimensional within the first 4 plays of the game. So,
big one if they can get it, even if it's ugly. Just get off the losing streak, get to 6-3, and that would make the last 2 weeks extremely exciting with the chance to win the East.
Oh, 100%. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm 100% bought in. I'm 75% bought in right now. The second they win that game, I'm painting my body and I'm streaking the quad.
All right. You're first.
All right, JMU men's basketball. Moving over to the hardwood real quick. Unless there's anything else you want to add about football.
No, I don't think so.
No, we'll hopefully talk about a win next week. I'm done talking about losses. Men's basketball. They opened the season with not just a win, but utter domination against the Valley Forge. Insert their mascot here.
Yeah, I mean, people know Valley Forge is an incredibly competitive team that can run press, they can run zone, they can run man. They can, they do a lot of different things offensively, pick and roll, space out shooters. And
they
just
play the Princeton style offense.
Yeah, they'll go Princeton style, and then they'll go sort of fast break, havoc defense type thing, trying to create opportunities. They do a little bit of everything, right? No, I hate that they're playing non-D1 teams. It's stupid. It was dumb. It was like watching somebody tweeted you could find 5 people at UREC who could compete with Valley Forge. And I bet there are 5 people in the last 2 weeks who could have played Division III basketball that have played at UREC. So I don't think that's wrong.
You could, yes, that I think could beat Valley Forge by like 20. The difference between a D3 player, and I'm not trying to diminish Division 3 athletics. Love Division 3. Bridgewater, awesome time. What they do for student athletes is fantastic. But the difference between a D3 player and a club player at like JMU is nothing. It's the same thing. Like they just chose to go to JMU and play club rather than go D3 and not get a scholarship.
Because some of them, like, decent number of people like get D3 offers and are just like, no.
I got one and I'd even play basketball. They said, you're tall. Could you imagine?
That would be so funny. They just like your body type. They're like, yeah, I just.
You can go on the post and get a couple fouls, eat it up real quick in the middle of the game. All right, coach.
But the fact that they have 2 more of these games is sickening. And I understand that it's like, oh, it's hard to schedule and there's these things and these things and all these things. And it's like, I don't care. Don't play 3 non-Division 1 teams and then count them. Just say it's an exhibition. Don't be like, we're 1-0. It's like, okay. Like it's like if you took me to UREC and played together, or put me in the AUBC and like have, Amadi dunk on my head and be like, we did it. We're 1-0. It's not like they're better than me at Valley Forge, but I don't know. It just felt stupid. Nobody from JMU played over 20 minutes. They cleared the bench. The walk-ons were like creating space, like significant space.
Interesting, though, Morse didn't start. Do you think
that was
that's
interesting?
A sign of things to come? We can break that out of everything in this game. I mean, one thing shows Noah Friedel, Hooper, Takal Molson, great to see him come back from his ACL. He's looking good. Terrence Edwards ran the one, fantastic. But I think the story is Morse coming off the bench. Is this a sign of things to come, or do you think this is Morse's spot as just a super 6?
I think it'd be kind of cool with him coming off like as a 6th man who scores a lot. I'm sure he would still play a lot, but it's cool to see that level of scoring potentially coming off the bench. And then Ihanacho and Strickland were out with injury, and I think Byington said it'll be a couple weeks for them, a few weeks for them maybe. That sucks on Ihanacho because I want to see him. You
love Ihanacho. He's
very versatile, which I like. So I think Strickland's pretty solid too. So when they get those guys back, that'll help a little bit. But I like what they did.
Friedel didn't miss a shot. 5 for 5 from the floor, 4 for 4 from deep, 3 from 3 from the free throw line. Look, I know he's shooting these things wide open because Valley Forge can't play defense, but even in warm-up lines, you're missing one of those.
Yeah, he might make you eat some of those words about replacing Chuck Falden like a 1-for-1 replacement. He seems like he goes out there and like really hunts his shot. So I think he might be a more dynamic offensive guy. So you're gonna have to watch him play at some point in the next couple of weeks because he's gonna. We will be at one of the games, but you'll have to watch him before then and get a look at him.
I'm definitely going to watch. I just didn't want to watch against Valley Forge. I'll probably watch against Hampton on Wednesday.
Okay, well, there you go. 9th, that'll be a fun
tomorrow.
One. And I thought... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch the other games. I just didn't want to waste my time. I'm not going to watch against Coastal Georgia either.
It's not like the day after Thanksgiving or something. It's like Black Friday.
November 25th, yeah. I'm going to be shopping. It's at 11 a.m., too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, they had everybody out there was balling out. The walk-ons were good. I thought Roberson, the freshman Jarrell Roberson, was pretty solid. A little raw. So I think it's going to take some time. But they asked him about it after the game. Byington was talking about the potential, and he was saying like you're going to see him now, and then you're going to see him as a junior and be like, whoa. But he's got ability. He knocked down a 3-pointer. He had a double-double, 10 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks. Again, it's Valley Forge, but the athleticism is there. The length is there. He already looks like stronger than he did when I watched like his high school clips, which isn't saying a lot. It's like 2-3 minute YouTube videos, but from
also, I can just imagine you with your popcorn next to you and be like, I'm about to strap in for some Roberson high school highlights. Give it to me. And then like 4 minutes and you're like, well, that was
it's also, they're always like, always those weird accounts. So it's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The first like 40 seconds is just like a rap song and like Roberson warming up. You don't even get like the actual game. It's just like getting them hype. So that wasn't the best. But they're athletic. Mezzi Offerham looks like a slightly larger version of Justin Amadi. Just like Amadi if Amadi had like 10 more pounds in an inch. So I thought that was like, okay, we got another guy who can play in the post a little bit. Sule missed some shots, but good to see him back, and he's pretty good. I don't know. I feel like they could be really, really good, but this game also is hard to actually read anything from.
So 2 of the most shocking things from this box score.
Yeah.
Julian Wooden didn't miss from the field.
Okay.
Went 2 for 2.
He only took 3 shots.
Went 2 for 2 from deep, though. That's big.
Yeah,
big time for him. The other most shocking thing is Holman Smith tied for the team lead in shots. With
I do love him being like, you put me in, I'm getting buckets, coach. Like,
well, no, the best part is he went 2 for 10.
I just love that he's putting up shots. That's awesome. And then you had Shane Feeden who went up there.
How did Nessie offer him get a tech?
Did he get a tech?
He got a tech.
He was definitely, I'm sure it was hanging on the rim because some of them were kind of hanging on for a while. So
Okay.
It was mostly dunks. Like I turned it on. It was mostly like Valley Forge would turn the ball over. It would be 4 Dukes in transition against one guy. Sometimes they would overpass it. Like there was one possession where they did like 3 around the back passes and then like missed a layup. It was like, what are you doing?
Did you see the one clip? I think it was Holman Smith. It may have been another player. But like that inbound pass came in and they like JMU easily just intercepted it. And then it was right before halftime and they were right outside the paint and the time was ticking off. And like the player looked around like, am I supposed to shoot it? Valley Forge isn't like converging on me. And like there's 5 seconds left in that. He just puts up a shot, then like looks back at the bench and is like, what? What am I supposed to do? And like they're up 76-10.
Just such a stupid game. They played those like secret scrimmages like 12 times more competitive.
They're secret. They're secret.
Like those are so much better for preparation. This one we're just like allowed to watch.
Yeah, it's sad. You open the season up against Valley Forge and you win by 123-38. I'd be upset if you didn't win that game like that. Like that's something you need to do. And someone else tweeted this. I forget who exactly it was, but they were like, it'd be better off just playing an inter-squad scrimmage. Yes, it really would be. Like, it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of broadcasting. It's a waste of money in terms of getting everyone in there into the building and having to have RMC. Like, just a waste overall in every single facet. But I'm excited for the season. I am excited seeing what Noah Friedel did, seeing what this team offensively can do. And I know we talk about Valley Forge. It's one thing to get the open shots because the team is bad. It's another thing, in my opinion, to then hit the open shots. So it's really great to see Wooden's perfect from the floor with 2 threes. It's awesome to see Friedel is just an absolute lethal shooter. It's interesting to see Morse come off the bench. There's things to garner from this. If Edwards is the true one, I'm excited for it. Have Vado as a super 6. It's going to be an exciting season.
Yeah, and they've got some lineups where they can go like 5 guys that are all 6'6".
Gigantic, man.
The gigantic lineup.
Shout out to Grant Johnson for being a good sport about that real quick. He did tweets. He tweeted the starting lineup for the second half. It was like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". And I quote tweeted and I said, I wonder what would happen if there was a 6'9" player on the floor. And he said it'd be like very gigantic. And I was like,
I like that. I also like going back to Grant. He had the Centeo scoop looking from the hill. Do you see the text that Brian sent us?
Oh, yeah. What Signetti said? Yeah, you got to share that real quick.
That's pretty funny. Where Signetti apparently told Grant Johnson today that he asked him if he watched practice from the hill before they spoke, which I thought was him being a good sport. Because I know there's some JMU fans who thought he should have been like
reprimanded and
banished from the
dungeon.
school. So Signetti's taking it in stride, which is nice to see.
Newsflash to everyone about that real quick. He's a media member. He's not a fan. His job is to do that. His job isn't to appease the coaching staff.
It also doesn't affect
impact
anything.
the game. Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, and if that was a Todd Centeo, what would have affected something is if he said, man, Todd Centeo can't throw past 5 yards. Yeah, that would have been
that would have been hilarious. He looks like they're not going to throw it all. They're doing a lot of third down and runs in this scrimmage, apparently.
Talking about third down runs, JMU women's basketball opens up with a terrible loss.
So Maine, in Maine's defense, Maine won the American East last year, and they were picked to finish second this year.
By terrible loss, I don't mean to the team itself. You lose 68-58, and then
60 to 58.
I cannot talk today. I'm so sorry. And then it's the comments after. That's where That's where I think this loss gets bad. Okay, real quick. The comments are more important than the game, but to give a quick recap of the game, you got a double-double out of Kiki Jefferson, 23 points, 11 rebounds, absolute stud, 8 for 14 from the floor. She's picking up right where she left off. Jamia Hazel, 7 points, 3 of 9 shooting. You need to see more out of her. Claire Neff, Peyton McDaniel combined to go 2 of 6 with just 5 points. You have to see more out of them. And then the rest of the team did all right. But I mean, it's feeling like last season. It's a Kiki Jefferson show, and whoever shows up on a random night, and if that's no one, they're going to lose. But the comments after the game were quite worrisome.
They were certainly interesting, if nothing else.
I'd go worrisome. Ben, do you want to share with the class?
Yeah, I will share these comments. So they're from Sean O'Regan, who maybe he was just like ticked after losing. First game, though, some comments that you wouldn't necessarily expect after first game. So this is from Shane Metlin's article in the DNR. So his lead quote is from Sean O'Regan. I'm disappointed. I wanted to win the game. Makes sense, right? I don't even want to say we played hard enough to win. Okay. We didn't play hard enough to win. Interesting. But I wanted to win the game. So immediately, like, they're, what is it, 40 minutes into the season, I guess? Yeah. And he's displeased with the effort level. That seems weird to have that on a season opener.
I have a meme for you. Please refer to the screen. Who did this? Who could have done such a thing? What happened?
It just doesn't. I don't know. That's really hard to understand. Where it's like, they weren't fired up to play.
Who's that on?
I don't know, man. Like, and then so then he had another quote that I think is also worth mentioning. So Shane Metlin did a nice job with this because he could have been, he probably could have been even like less critical. I think he was really fair in his criticism, but he essentially was like, these are the same issues that JMU had last season. Shane Metlin was writing about that, where they had 4 assists, which is very low, and 15 turnovers, which you don't love to see, minus 11 in that ratio. And then you also
terrible. That's utterly abysmal.
Well, then they also were 3 of 14 from 3, which is not good.
Which is also
those were massive problems last season. And it was like all this talk about how they're going to get better there. And so I guess he asked him about it directly, and O'Regan goes, "It feels the same, doesn't it? I'm sitting in the staff locker room, and I thought to myself, this feels the same. It's a little bit of Kiki time, which like she almost took over and led them to a win despite no one else doing anything." And then he says, that was me adding that, by the way. So O'Regan says it's a little bit of Kiki time.
Or the
me adding. He said the Kiki time. So Sean O'Regan's final quote here is, "It's a little bit of Kiki time, and she makes baskets, but there wasn't movement." Again. That was the end of the quote. But like for them to say, or for him to say, right, for him to go out and be like, yeah, there's no offensive movement. I don't know. You had a whole off season to make the team move up. Like that feels like it's entirely, I don't know. I want to see a lot more before I'm like out on this team. But are you alarmed by them having the same issues and then saying?
Yes. I've been saying, is Coach O's seat warm for the last 3 seasons, and I feel like finally people are starting to a little bit catch up to this. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but there needs to be more pressure put on Coach O for his lackluster performance. You had the best player in the Colonial Athletic. You arguably have, I'm saying arguably because I don't know the landscape of women's basketball in the Sun Belt as of right now, but arguably the best player in Sun Belt Conference in Kiki Jefferson.
She's definitely one of the best.
You have CAA Rookie of the Year Peyton McDaniel, who got 8 minutes and is still coming back.
I think she's
still coming back from injury. But also the way you handled that whole injury, she was going to play opening night, and then she was not played opening night, and then all of a sudden she's out for season. That's a little weird. Claire Neff, who's when she was brought in, was supposed to be like this 3-point savant. 0 for 2 from 3, 1 of 1 from inside the arc. Good job, I guess. 12 minutes. Your next biggest scorers, 22 minutes from Amira Williams, 1 point. 20 minutes from Steph Odekirk, no points. And Steph Odekirk was a starter. Like, you're telling me that Caroline Gurmand a grad student from TCU, led the team with 2 assists and 4 turnovers.
And she was balling out a little bit. I actually like her. I also had
Okay,
the
cool. You're not balling out with 2 assists and 4 turnovers. I mean, come on, an old Kenny Brooks team destroys Maine. If you gave Kiki Jefferson to the Virginia Tech Hokies, they're winning a lot of games in the ACC.
I also thought, I saw one tweet though that was like, man, they should have written Kenny Brooks a blank check. It's like, that's absolutely not how this works. That's like not something they could have done when he went to Virginia Tech. It was like, you like doubled his salary. They're not going to spend like football coach money on the women's basketball coach. So that's not realistic and probably worth noting. Not that you were saying that they should have kept Kenny Brooks, but I think
and I also don't think Coach O's a bad coach. Again, I think he's trying to push a square peg into a round hole. I think this is the way JMU has done it. It's been great defense, good ball movement, led by a star. And I don't think that's what this team is.
Well, they don't have good ball movement.
Exactly.
Or
good
off ball movement.
They have not, they don't have, you have Kiki Jefferson. And the way this team is playing, you have to adapt to your team, it feels like at this point. Because if not, we're going to run into the same issues of last season, which is a team that doesn't know how to get the ball from one player to another without finding its way into the opponent's hands.
I think the part that alarms me too a little bit is, and we do this with Byington a little bit, but he kind of weirdly finds ways to make it work. But we're like, oh, cool, small ball with no shooters. This one feels like, okay, they're not good at shooting the 3-pointer. They turn it over a lot.
Yep.
Well, they must have, like a go-to post scorer. Nope. Like that's not something they have on the roster, which is confusing. Like their post players are probably a little better defensively. I think Kozlova did some nice things offensively in this game and hit some clutch free throws late. So maybe there's something there, but it's really, really hard to be like not a great 3-point shooting team, even though you've kind of built the roster of guards.
This team also only had 2 players in double digits.
Can I give you some positives and see if they'll change your mind?
Yeah, they can. You can try.
Okay. So you got Germond at point guard, who does seem like she can make some nice passes and handle the ball.
Okay, cool.
So
4 of 7 from the floor as well, but she did have 4 turnovers.
I know. They got to cut those down. But some of it, too, is like if nobody makes shots, it's hard to get that 2 assist total up. Like if you're hitting an open
that's a good point.
Teammate, that part sucks.
And not to take anything away from Kiki, when you pass it to Kiki, she's going to take 15 dribbles and then make her shot, which then negates your assist. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. She's not like a catch and shoot player. She kind of like creates space like gradually and does very well with that. But yeah, it's hard to get like a ton of assists. So I assume Neff is not 100% was kind of my
other. Said that.
Well, it's like I don't know why she would only play 12 minutes if you. Wasn't he call her like his sunshine or something?
I don't know. He has a weird affinity for Claire Neff, who keeps it 3.
But for her, he's gone on record like a lot of times being like she's a huge spark plug. So for her to only play 12 minutes was kind of weird. So I'm assuming she was maybe injured a little bit. Peyton McDaniel, I think, is still coming back, so she only got 8 minutes. She hit 1 of the 3 made threes. She was 1 of 1 from 3-point range. So getting her healthy helps. And according to reports, which is Shane Metlin, some preseason stuff, Kobe King Hawea is arguably going to be one of the team's best offensive players. And she doesn't become eligible, Jack, until like after the semester ends in December. So maybe the offense gets better when it's like a healthier Neff, a healthier McDaniel, and then you get this Texas/JUCO transfer who can fill it up. And you've got maybe those are 3 huge contributors and the offense takes a major leap.
So this team has 9 more games until this amazing offensive player apparently can join the team, roughly 9.
Something like that. I think it's mid-December, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how, a 3-7 record looks.
They're not going to be 3-7. They have enough cupcakes coming up.
Yeah, good. A win at Millersville. You're going to lose to Queens.
No, they're not. They're not going to lose to Queens. Is Queens women's team good?
Oh, they're all right. They're not great. They're not as good as the men's. Shout out the Queens men's team real quick.
Yeah.
10-point comeback to take down Marshall. Let's go. Also, why would Marshall agree to an opening night game at Queens? That seems a little like bad schedule management.
But like they should beat Longwood, Maryland Eastern Shore, William and Mary, Hampton. I think they'll win.
They should
at least.
beat Maine.
They should, but Maine's a little more fringe. I think they'll win at least like 6.
I don't think they're winning the Sun Belt title.
I was a little alarmed by the performance. I think they have some reasons to believe, but I do think I was not on board previously. I'm on board with a little closer monitoring of the situation.
How many numbers am I showing up to the screen right now, Bennett?
It looks like a 0.
Yeah, that's how many postseason tournament titles Sean O'Regan has won.
That's so unfair, though, with the COVID year. That's what's
Oh,
hard.
that's so unfair. What about his 3 years before COVID when he had Precious Hall and Kamaya Smalls?
He had. Let me look to make sure I have all of this.
Oh, it's so fair that he's only ever had one team that could win the CAA, even though he had so many more.
He has been there a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So he was there. In 2016-17.
Lost.
They were 26-9.
Cool.
And they were runner-up in the CAA title. Then they
Lost
got
to
this.
Elon.
Yeah. I remember that. That was
Yeah,
you're right. That was
embarrassing
Precious
fashion.
Hall. Then they had
Precious
the
Hall
next year.
and Kamaya. Freshman Kamaya.
Okay. The next year they were not very good, but they were young. They got to the WNIT third round. Then the next year they were pretty good. Got to the WNIT semis, right? They beat Virginia Tech.
But that's the year they got bounced in the first round of the CAA tournament.
Yeah, but they
because your third option went 0 for 20 from 3. That's coaching. Give her the red light.
But they did have so many injuries that year.
That made it tough. No.
Oh my god. It was 5 of 27, by the way, which is absolutely insane.
5 of 27 from 3. Why do you not just get a sign that says stop?
Oh my god.
That's
All right,
bad.
that was a tough one. I forgot about this. I was really trying to go on the defensive train. All right, but then the next year they were actually a really good team. And then they had COVID hit, which was suboptimal timing.
You're right, because that was the best team in arguably a long time.
But then the next 2 after that they've been bad. So they've had like 3 iffy years and then a couple of disappointing conference tournament finishes. If it's 3 like iffy years in a row, I do become concerned though.
This is a third iffy year.
You think it's gonna be an iffy year for sure?
Yes, based off of the comments off that game.
Those are weird. I'll say that, and yeah. I like that he was candid. I like when all coaches are candid, but it doesn't mean you have to like agree with the. It's just confusing to be. I don't know how you can have a season opener at home when you don't like the energy level.
I don't know how you like blame the team for things that are coaching.
It's super. I mean, it was a winnable game, and if you have a whole off season, it's like, hey, we got to figure out how to either shoot the 3 better or scheme around it and not turn the ball over as much and have more assists. And then your first game, you're like, man, we look exactly the same.
Also, if you know those are your issues, like you have to play better defense, and to play good defense, you have to have buy-in. And I just don't know if there's buy-in with this team based off of what happened last season with some of the players' parents. Like, I don't know how much of the locker room Coach O has right now. And that's really not dangerous, but maybe a little weird for me to say as someone who's like not really around the program, but who's someone who's habitually on social media and sees what these parents are like writing to Coach O. It just seems like there's something weird.
I'm definitely interested in seeing how this year goes. The other thing that I thought was interesting, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but they defensively seemed like more committed this year a little bit in terms of being like in defensive stances and stuff, including some players. But like from watching UVA in the pack line, like one of the main things in the pack line is it doesn't actually force like an absurd amount of turnovers, they're just constantly like in your face. So they're not like jumping over passing lanes that they can't get into and overextending. They're just consistently in the right place, like forcing you to shoot threes, basically, which is why it's so effective, is they have like length that defends the rim and they're athletic, whatever. But they don't actually force like a gazillion steals in the pack line defense. And you don't have to have your defense be like that. But so many times yesterday, they were killed with like backdoor cuts repeatedly, or there would be a spot where it's like, you probably can't get a steal there, and a player would like lunge looking for a steal, then be completely out of position. They would give up a layup. And it's things like that that feel like sometimes execution, but a lot of that feels like you got to scheme that and coach that, where it's like, hey, well, you can't be jumping every passing lane expecting to get a steal.
Yeah.
So it just felt weird defensively with them, like making what appear to be mental errors. And then they also had like a couple of times where they were really lazy in breaking the whatever kind of press they were running. I forget exactly what it was, but they're running some sort of little press main was, and it kind of threw JMU off with committing turnovers. So it feels like they have very similar issues, which is not a great opening night sign.
Not at all. All right. Anything else you want to add?
Quick Olympic sports thing really fast. Men's soccer are still alive in the Sun Belt tournament. They played Georgia State.
Huge upset.
Yeah. Huge upset over Marshall. So they're alive. They'll play Georgia State in the semifinals. Women's soccer fell to ODU and was kind of a sweet match in the championship. So their season's done, but a pretty good year for them, making the conference finals. And then volleyball's conference tournament starts next week, but they're 13-1 in conference play. So they've got a good shot at winning that.
They also volleyball had two pick up Sunbelt weekly honors.
Yeah.
2 of the 3 weekly awards. Probably will wipe the floor with a few postseason awards as well when those are announced. So, for Bennett Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. See you at the ODU game. See you at the Georgia State game. Who would have thought we'd be going to back-to-back games at some point in this season? Until next week, you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear. That's Miro.com.